In this episode of the Well Aware podcast, we meet Rachel Hechtman, peer recovery specialist and the voice behind the Instagram account Sober in Central Park. They explore the link between ADHD and addiction, the usage of stimulant medication while in recovery, and how Rachel rebuilt her life through movement, community, and advocacy, including her work with Brooklyn's first non-alcoholic bar, Soft Bar. Tune in for an honest conversation about sobriety, neurodivergence, and the strength it takes to step away from substance use to build a new life. Let's get started.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Well Aware podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Lauren Grauert, Chief Medical Officer at Aware Recovery Care and a board-certified addiction psychiatrist. Today, I'm super excited to have an amazing guest with us, Rachel Hechtman, who is Rachel, I don't even know where to start. Peer recovery specialist, really, I would say a leader of an entire movement of the sober and the sober curious movement, really growing presence on Instagram, social media, opening a sober bar. We have so much to dive into today. Rachel, can you start maybe by just telling us a little bit about your own recovery journey and what inspired you to help others?
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks so much for having me here. I'm super excited to be here and chatting with you. So I got sober almost exactly 4.5 years ago, and I never wanted to be sober. I mean, I don't know a lot of sober people that are like, oh, like this was my goal. But I was, as cliche as it sounds, sick and tired of feeling sick and tired all the time. And I think having COVID happen gave me the time and the space to really realize that I was my own worst enemy and I was the problem with my life, not my job, not my work, not all the things that I would always blame for my issues. It was me and my drinking. And so, after binging alcohol and whatever and food and everything all of 2020, I got to January 2021 and my mom, asked me to do dry January with her, and I didn't want to, but I reluctantly agreed on the 3rd of the month, and I made it the 30 days. And anyways, I didn't know my anxiety could ever reach a level that it did after 30 days, even just 30 days. And I was like, okay, I have to keep going and see how long I can go for. And once I started going through the journey, with a few months in, I had broken up with my long-term partner who we were living together. And then I got rid of a few of my friends and I kind of found myself in a space where I was alone. I didn't have a community helping me. I didn't have any sober friends. It was I was in this weird liminal space and I had nothing holding me accountable. So I decided to go to social media and create a recovery account just to hold myself accountable and try to make some new friends that were sober. And I had no idea what was going to come from that account, but there was no sober Instagram then. That didn't really exist. There were maybe a handful of meme accounts. It wasn't what it is now. Mm-hmm. And so I just started sharing my journey on there, and eventually it started growing, and then people started asking me to help them get sober, and I was like, wait, you want me to help you? So I got certified as a coach. I did a year-long certification program. And I started working with clients, and then everything just was very natural progression. If you would have told the old me that this would be my life, I would have called you a liar and tried to have you committed. But here we are.
Man, it's so clear that your journey and your struggles really have resonated with so many people. And the other unique thing I think about you is you're very open about co-occurring disorders and struggling with ADHD when you were younger. Talk a little bit about that. How do you think that ADHD diagnosis either factored into your recovery journey in a helpful way, in a harmful way? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the ADHD journey is so closely tied to my recovery journey and my alcohol abuse and my my whole life. Everything is centered around, honestly, the ADHD. And I didn't really understand that and the significance of having ADHD until I was already in recovery. And I was able to link the two and really understand why I did certain things, why my brain worked the way it did. I'm fortunate that I was diagnosed as a teenager. But, I've done a lot of research into this, and they say that whatever the experts say, if the kids find drugs and alcohol before being diagnosed and put on medication, they're like 5 times more likely to develop a substance use problem. And
Mm.
so for me, we moved around a lot as a kid when I was younger. I was always the new kid in school. I was always having to make new friends. I never had stability there. And so when I got to 8th grade, we moved to Connecticut, and I like fell in with the popular kids, and I started drinking and doing drugs when I was summer before 9th grade. And my parents got divorced, and by 10th grade, I was like dating someone older. I like didn't care about school. I couldn't concentrate. Thought there was something wrong with me. I just had no motivation. I couldn't pay attention, but I knew I was smart. Like I always like school was always kind of easy for me, but I just like couldn't pay attention. And so my mom sent me to boarding school where I repeated my sophomore year. And about like a few months into the school year, a teacher one day was like, "Did you take your meds today?" And I was like, "I don't take meds." And the teacher was like, "Oh my gosh, you need to be assessed for ADHD immediately."
Mm.
So I was assessed for ADHD. I was diagnosed and put on medication, and my whole world changed. Like I started excelling in school. I started doing really well. I was like in AP calculus, like I was really good at math. Like I couldn't believe it. I was like, "Oh my God, I'm fixed." Like I'm fixed. But that's not the reality. No one explained to me what like the difference in my brain or what ADHD really was. I just kind of was told like, here's a pill that's going to make you pay attention and like keep you focused. But I had no idea like I didn't produce as much dopamine as the neurotypical person. So I would be dopamine searching in everything I did. And I listened to the same song like 100 times in a row and then can never listen to it again. Like weird things. And I didn't understand my brain. And so I go to college. I went to Dartmouth College, and the second I got there, I just wanted to party, and I just It was a very hard time for me. My mental health really suffered,
Mm.
and it was challenging, and that was a whole traumatic experience of its own. But yeah, so I've realized though with my ADHD that a lot of times I'm very fortunate, and it's a lot of privilege that I was diagnosed. But a lot of the people I work with and talk to are undiagnosed high achieving women who have been told that they have anxiety and depression when really they have ADHD,
Mhm.
and they hate themselves. Honestly, they have horrible self-talk and they don't understand why they do certain things. And so to cope with that, they self-medicate with alcohol, and then they develop these issues. And so I've just seen this over and over and over. And it's gotten to a point where I'm like, it's wild that society has honestly failed these women because it just presents so differently in women than in men. And anyways, they're very closely linked.
They are. And I'm so glad you brought that up. I was going to mention that. I feel as a psychiatrist, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Oftentimes, an ADHD presentation is different in women or girls than men and boys. And I would say in a way that leads to underdiagnosing. I think we all think of ADHD in children as like the classic hyperactive, bouncing off the walls, which can be present, but is honestly a lot more common in boys. We know that ADHD comes in the inattentive type, the combined type. And so, do you think that you being female and the presentation being slightly different perhaps contributed to that delayed diagnosis?
Definitely. And because I was able to do well in school still, and I mean, I also think it had to do with the fact that we moved around a lot when I was younger. I mean, I don't know, but yeah, I do think that I do have combined type ADHD. So I am a little hyperactive and inattentive. But I've had the past 20 years to work on it. And so, and I've known that I've had this for 20 years. So when I talk to clients who are in their late 30s and early 40s that have no idea that they have ADHD, and they've just like thought that there was something off with them, or that they have tried all these anxiety and depression medications and they haven't worked. And I'm like, have you been assessed for ADHD? Like, I'm not a doctor, but I can tell when someone else is neurodivergent because I'm neurodivergent. And it's just wild to see.
Yeah, yeah. I love how you're kind of giving it back though, or paying it forward, giving it back, paying it forward. I mean, taking a lot of your insights from your struggles and saying, "Hey, like this looks familiar. Hey, think about this." Giving it back, paying it forward. I think it's the same thing. One question I probably get asked the most often by other physicians or physician extenders is, hey, can I prescribe a stimulant in somebody who has a history of a substance use disorder? I honestly get asked it so much that I posted a video about it on social media. And when NPs and doctors ask me, I'm like, well, let me send you this. But did you experience when you were, and for the record, my answer is always like, of course. And you're doing somebody an incredible disservice if you do not, because particularly in ADHD and bipolar disorder, part of the symptoms are that impulsivity. And so if you're not treating that impulsivity with medications, whether it's a stimulant for ADHD or a mood stabilizer for bipolar, you're just setting somebody up to fail with that impulsivity component. So I think it's pretty straightforward. But did you, along your recovery journey, did you encounter providers or family members or public who had concerns about that, or were like, gee, what was your experience there?
No, I didn't. I mean, I've been prescribed medication since I was in high school, and luckily, I never abused my medication. I don't know, I actually wouldn't take it every day. And I think that really harmed me. I would take it Monday through Friday and then not take it on the weekends. And that was bad. Like if you're listening out there and you do that too, please try to take it every day. But no, I've talked to other people that are in 12-step recovery programs or whatever that were told they had to go off their medication. And that actually makes my blood boil, because that is, I agree, such a disservice. Why would you make your life harder in that regard? I understand the thinking between that. Listen, if someone abused their medication in the past, I get it. But if they never had a history of abusing medication like that and they are struggling in their daily life, no, they should be on the stimulants 100%.
Right. And to your point, I mean, the pharmacological reason I think behind the concern is that stimulants are dopamine agonists. They increase dopamine, which is kind of the primary pleasure reward chemical. However, in ADHD, to what you said earlier, the problem is that you don't have enough dopamine. It's not like we're giving people more dopamine than they need by starting a stimulant. You're really just filling up a pool to like the lowest level it should be. And I try to like emphasize that is that like, no, there's an underlying dopamine deficit, and here's how it displays, whether it's anhedonia, lack of liking to do things, impulsivity. So I'm glad to hear, as a fellow as a provider, that you didn't experience challenges there, because there's certainly a lot of education we have to continue doing in the medical world.
Yeah, no, I didn't. But I do think that's because I had been diagnosed for so long and I had been on medication for so long, and that really had like nothing to do with my drinking issues, and I had never abused it. Like I, always had my own medication, and that wasn't my issue.
Yes, yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about how fitness has influenced your recovery journey. I know you're a fellow walker like me. I walk all the time, but it sounds like you have such an amazing journey on how you integrated fitness into your recovery journey to be most successful and most fulfilled. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, before I got sober, I did not ever want to work out or move my body. I would maybe do the rare Pilates class like every few months with a friend of mine, but like I did not want to do anything. I did get my dog before I got sober, like 2.5 years before I got sober. I got him to force myself to get up and move my body and walk him have a regular routine, because they live in New York City. You have to walk your dog, but I would do the bare minimum. Sorry, George. And, that was that. And then when I stopped drinking, I realized, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with myself now? Every time I wanted to drink, like, even though it was January, February, whatever, winter in New York City, I would put my shoes on and I would just start walking with my dog. And eventually, like I lived close to Central Park, but like not super close, and I did not know my way around Central Park at all. And so we would walk, he would pull me to Central Park and we'd go in and do like one path behind the Met or something and then turn around. My anxiety before I got sober was so bad that I couldn't do a lot of things. Like it held me back from living life, and I was scared to step out of my comfort zone. I was scared to try new things. I was just like scared of everything. Mm-hmm. And so, but as I got further into my sober journey, my dog would pull me further into Central Park. And we literally explored like 6 miles of the park, path by path by path. And eventually he got to a point where he was running around for off leash hours, which you can do before 9 a.m. in Central Park. And it became like just my place every day where I would wake up. The first thing I would do is go walk in Central Park with my dog. And that was like my daily meditation, I kind of convinced myself my first year of sobriety that if I didn't walk like 6 miles in Central Park, I was going to relapse, which is not healthy thinking. I don't know. I was just equated moving my body and getting the dopamine from the exercise and having that clarity first thing with feeling good for the rest of the day. And I actually lost like almost 100 pounds from literally just walking. Well,
Wow.
no, I also changed my eating habits. So not just walking, but yeah. Anyways, it became very integral to my journey. So
Well, and I imagine you kind of have said this in different ways, but I'm imagining the exercise component not only helped your recovery journey, but also your anxiety in a tremendous way. We know that exercise
yeah.
is as effective as antidepressants for that. And it's become, you kind of integrated into like a permanent part of your life now, it sounds.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it definitely is. And to the point where, I used to hear people say, like, if I don't exercise, I feel like crap. And I would look at them and be like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't believe that. Like, what are you talking about?" And now I'm that person where I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's a heat wave here right now. And we could be outside for like the bare minimum. And I'm like, I feel a little off today. I'm probably going to go walk on my treadmill in my gym later because I need that in order to feel like myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely integral to the journey. And now it's become like just overall wellness, is definitely what I see in my day-to-day life. So
That's awesome. Talk to us a little bit about the importance of replacement drinks for those who are sober or sober curious. I'm super interested in this because I would put, transparently speaking, myself in like a sober curious box. But I find the hardest thing is like finding replacement drinks to drink if it's 5 p.m., 6 p.m. And you've got a great website. You've got a lot on there. You've got a couple that are some of my favorites, but for those listening, talk a little bit about the importance of replacement drinks and ones that you would suggest.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I say just in terms of replacements, when you get sober, you need to find replacements for everything in your life. You need replacement friends, people who get it. You need replacement hobbies to fill your time, and you need replacement beverages because you're used to drinking beverages, right? For a big portion of your day. And you're going to want to reach for something that's not just water or soda or juice. Like, there's nothing wrong with those, but they can get boring. Luckily now there are so many non-alcoholic, sophisticated adult beverages out there that taste good. A lot of them have adaptogens in them, which those are my favorites, because they actually do something good and healthy for the body, whether that's boosting your mood, helping with blood flow, helping with stress relief, and they're all just like stuff from the earth that help the body. So it's really important to stock your fridge with beverages. I think my life, I went a little crazy with that. I mean, if you saw how many beverages were surrounding me at this moment, it's actually scary. But I do work in the beverage space now, so but yeah, it's super important to have that. And when you go to an event or something and you're new in your journey, you want to have a plan, right? So you want to know, what are you going to say to people? What's your escape route if you need it? And what am I going to drink?
Mhm.
And bring your own beverages. I
Mhm.
bring beverages to everything I do. I'm rolling up with non-alc wine. I'm rolling up with my curious elixirs, like whatever it is. And I know I will be having a delicious beverage no matter where I am. And and then I can share them with other people. I love it. But I think it's a really important part of the journey.
Yeah. To kind of have that plan in place ahead of time. And I would imagine they're new enough. I guess I want to say the replacement beverages, they're new enough that I'd imagine it's a good talking point. I mean, people see like what's it, the ones sober AF or no, free AF, and it's in a beautiful can. And do you find that it's like a interesting talking point? Like people are curious about it versus knowing automatically what it is?
Well, now that I'm in this space, I do a lot of events that aren't sober events, that are just regular events, and people want to have non-alcoholic options, which is super inclusive. And I'm so grateful that people do that. So getting to do beverages where people come and they might have no idea what a non-alcoholic sophisticated elixir is, and I get to describe it to them and see them try it for the first time. I mean, it's really cool to see people's reactions. They're like, "Oh my gosh, that's so good." And they ask all the questions. So I mean, I do that multiple times a week. And it brings me a lot of joy to show people that these are options, these exist. There's so many things out there. Um, so yeah, I mean, it is a great talking point and people are really appreciative. Actually, I did a non-alcoholic wine bar recently at the Irish consulate here in New York City, and it was for the Irish American Bar Association of New York, so Irish lawyers. And a friend of mine is part of this group, so it was a wine event, but I was there with non-alcoholic wine. And I'll tell you, people walked in and either wanted to run away from my table because we're talking about Irish lawyers, like they like to drink. And so they were like, I'm going to go and drink the real wine. Or people were so excited I was there because they didn't drink anymore. Right. Or, they were kind of curious. But what was interesting was even the people that avoided me like the plague when they first walked in, eventually at certain times throughout the night came over and they were like, actually, I do want to try what you have. And like they were interested. And then they would try it and they'd be like, this doesn't have alcohol in it. I'm like, no, it's alcohol removed. They take it out. And they just couldn't believe it. And I actually think it planted the seed in a lot of people's minds that like you don't even have to be completely sober, but you can maybe have a glass of wine and then some non-alcoholic wine and just try to drink less.
Yes.
It was a really cool experience.
That
for
is
sure.
so awesome. And I would argue that's probably the most important demographic to reach. Those are folks I think who, that's an uncaptured group who at times people are always looking for a different alternative, but maybe don't have enough motivation to go out and seek it. And so to have it convenient there and try it from you and then be pleasantly surprised. Yeah, what a great, and like, I mean, you're going into the wolf's den. You would imagine people, like you said, would run like the plague, but there's the people that sometimes are pleasantly surprised and you're changing hearts and minds one drink at a time.
Yeah, I will say you have to have a thick skin. Like I now wear it like a badge of honor. Like I love the fact that I don't drink anymore and I do not care what anybody thinks about that, like at all. And the old version of me really cared what people thought. Like it really held me back from doing a lot of stuff. But, so yeah, people were kind of looking at me like, oh, there's the non-alcoholic wine girl. Like I don't want her stuff. But they were actually interested and curious. And it's just interesting to see how your decision to be sober can be reflected in someone else's reaction, right? So I have a lot of clients that will tell people that they're not drinking anymore, and that other person's reaction will be like, "But how much were you drinking? Were you drinking a lot?" Or "I only drank like a few times a week," but like, and then talk about their own drinking habits when it had nothing to do with their drinking habits, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it just holds up a mirror to someone else's relationship with alcohol.
Yeah, so true, and so important. Well, as we're wrapping up, I want to make sure you can tell us about Soft Bar and also just a little bit more about Sober in Central Park. I mean, you have such a fascinating and compelling calling on social media. So I know the two are connected. Tell us a little bit about Soft Bar and Sober in Central Park.
Well, they're actually not connected. So no, Sober in Central Park is my Instagram account, my business. It's quite literal because I found myself sober in Central Park all the time. So that's, just my recovery page where I try to show people you don't need alcohol to have a fun life. And, I just take people along on my journey. So definitely if you're interested, come check it out and follow along. But through Sober in Central Park, I met someone named Carl who is opening a non-alcoholic bar, and we met a little over 2 years ago. And so he had this idea to open a place called Soft Bar, and I am on the team and I run the events and non-alcoholic brand partnerships for Soft Bar, and we will hopefully be opening our doors in August. We've been working on this for a really long time, and we are opening in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. And so it's really exciting because we're going to have some really awesome events and serve really sophisticated beverages, and just be a place for people to come and meet like-minded people and have a good time without having alcohol be at the center of everything.
I love it. And selfishly, when Soft Bar is a huge hit, not if, but when, your second satellite location has to be in DC because I will be there. I'll be there. It sounds super awesome.
Thank you.
What I always like to ask people this question at the end, what would be your most important piece of advice or your take home message for anybody listening to this, male or female, who's struggling with alcohol or another substance and thinking about that journey? What's like your take home message for them?
If you think that you have a problem with alcohol, you do. That's it. If you're Googling, do I have a drinking problem? You do. And it's not a bad thing, but people who don't have problems with it aren't thinking about it and Googling it and trying to very hard to moderate and having the struggles. So I think I hear from a lot of people like, I'm not sure if it's a problem or not. I don't know if I should quit. But if you're even having that discussion in your head, then it is a problem.
Mm.
And I'm sorry if that sounds harsh, but it's that tricky and it's that dangerous of a substance. And you don't have to have a rock bottom moment to decide that alcohol is just not serving your life. And, you can just decide that you don't want to live that way anymore. You don't want the hangovers. You don't want the anxiety. And I promise life is so much easier on the other side. And it's so much more fulfilling and fun and freeing. And you're not missing out on anything. Actually, I do think you're missing out when you're still drinking because you literally don't remember things. You're hungover on the couch. And it's just a whole new world. So it might feel scary at first, but eventually it just becomes magical and beautiful and great. But find the community, find people that get it, and get your support system in place.
I love that. Well, Rachel, tell our listeners how they can follow and support you. I would say it, but I think you can probably say it better. What's the best way for folks to follow you, find you as I do?
Yeah, come onto Instagram on Sober in Central Park and just follow along there.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me today from another East Coast city to talk about alcohol, recovery, sobriety. I so appreciate your optimism and your hope that's mixed with honesty. That's the best combination: honesty, optimism, and hope, and just telling it like it is, showing our listeners a great example of somebody who's made it through on the other side and doing amazing things with their life. Thank you so much for just everything you're doing for other people. Those of you listening, Rachel has a great website as well to check out, the Sober in Central Park Instagram. So thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back with another edition of the Well Aware podcast. Until then, thank you for your time and stay well.
Thank you for having me.